Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if there's any way to turn that mic down, but that was almost painful. I mean, it was tough. Not your questions, Crapo, just the intensity. First of all, Chairman Powell, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve. I appreciate your work that you've done working with the Federal Reserve Board throughout the health and economic crisis that we found ourselves in. And just to say, as many have said before me, we appreciate your steady hand. In your opening statement, you talked about climate change and cyber attacks, taking those into account as part of the things the Fed has to do. There was an interesting story in the Post yesterday that talked about $145 billion this country spent on disasters in 2021. December was the warmest ever, and last year was the fourth warmest year in history. I think that's a conservative number because I don't think it took in the impacts of our crops and crop insurance and things like that. I say that because I hope you will continue to gather as much information as possible about what needs to happen as this climate situation appears to be getting worse and not better as time moves on. The American taxpayer deserves that. Look, the challenges that we've had because of this pandemic, it's fair to say that the Federal Reserve has helped us get through this in a major way. This question's been asked before, but I'm going to ask it again in a different way. Could you compare the economy pre-pandemic, pandemic a year ago, and today, and tell me where we're at in relation to those three different points in time?
Sure. So the pre-pandemic economy, that was a very long, historically long, 10 years and 8 months expansion. Growth was just modestly above potential every year. So we were getting growth between 2% and 3%, and we think potential growth is around 2%. So that implies a tightening labor market. So we had this long, relatively uninterrupted period of growth, and what happened is unemployment kept coming down and participation kept coming up, and that was very beneficial. And so you saw people around the edges of the labor market getting more wages. We saw companies going to prisons and recruiting people who weren't going to get out for a couple of years. I mean, it was it was a great labor market. So that's pre-pandemic. So then the pandemic comes and it upends everything. So the question really is, how's it going to be different? And we're only beginning to see that because we're not out of the pandemic. We're a long way from out of the pandemic potentially. But so what are some of the things that we're seeing that are with us now? One of them is that the recovery in labor force participation overall has been slower than hoped. Actually, prime-age labor force participation has moved up a full percentage point almost last year. But overall, that was offset significantly by older people retiring, older people and not older people retiring. So we're seeing some differences. We're going to see people working remotely. There's the wage increases that we're seeing are still very skewed to the lower end of the income spectrum. So there may be something happening there where wages are just going to be higher for people. And we don't know whether any of this will persist, but those are some of the things that we're seeing. I know employers who are hiring younger people out of school are finding that they have to have one day to work from home, or they'll go to someplace else where they can get that. So it's a market right now where labor is very short, and as a result, workers have a lot of leverage, and that may persist. So I think there's a lot of different things.
I've just got a limited amount of time here, but could you speak a little bit about the importance of the independence of the Fed? I remember pretty clearly the kind of pressure that was put on you by President Trump to try to politicize the Fed. And I commend you on keeping it independent. Could you talk about why that's so important?
Sure. So it's essential that we work for all Americans, and that's what we do. And it's essential that we do that without regard to political considerations like election cycles or particular political parties' views on issues that are outside our mandate. You know, we have to focus on the job Congress has given us, which is maximum employment and price stability, and also the payment system and financial stability and other things. But we've got to do that, and that is what we need to do to justify our continued independence, and we're committed to doing that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Tester. Senator Rounds from South Dakota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, first